morning and welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Calvin Butenoff coming to you live from our studio here at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us, call or text. The number is the same, 855-752-4842. You can leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Busy show coming up. I'm really looking forward to our guest after the 9:30 news. Will Sue is a ginseng farmer in Wisconsin, and Wisconsin is a huge exporter of ginseng. And obviously the Trump tariffs have been affecting Will's business. I had the chance to talk to him a couple of years ago when I first started producing for Kristen, and we had Will on the show then, just to learn about. That's one of those things, again, in our own backyard that I think a lot of people are not familiar with. That Wisconsin does what? Yeah, we do. We grow a lot of ginseng. So we're going to talk to Will Sue and find out how things are going with his business under the Trump tariffs. That's coming up after the 9:30 news. It's Friday. That means that Dan Schaefer, Civic Media's political editor, will be here in the 10 o'clock hour. Of course, as expected, Republicans essentially stripped everything from Governor Evers' budget, including all of the things that the Joint Finance Committee heard about in their 4 meetings that they held around the state, where people got to tell the Joint Finance Committee what was important to them. And they stripped all that stuff out.
No, wait, I'm so shocked, Jane.
I know.
Look at me being surprise-faced.
I'm so surprised, yes. So we'll talk about that with Dan in hour number 2. Also going to talk about that proposal to make some changes so that more movie makers would make movies here.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea.
I think it's a wonderful idea.
We need more hundreds of beavers.
We need thousands of beavers.
That's what we need.
That's our sequel.
And then we'll wrap up the show, as we always do, with This Shouldn't Be a Thing. Today it is the Tanks for the Memories edition. It's a little more political than we normally get.
But
just
it's
a
fun.
Scooch. But it's fun. There's a video element involved in that as well, so stick around for that. Also, today, Friday.
It is Friday.
It is Friday.
Yeah.
Your first chance to pick up a 4-pack of Brewers tickets.
What?
A little bit later on this hour, we will have the keyword that you want to text in for our statewide text to win contest. And you're going to have until the very end of the show.
Yep.
To text in that word. And then in the Tom Hartman show, 11 to 2, there will be another word. Same thing with Todd Alba from 2 to 4, Maggie Dawn from 4 to 6. So you got 5 chances to get your name in the running for this 4-pack of Brewers tickets. The one thing I do want to let you know about this is you cannot exchange games.
No, you cannot. And the only way you can participate is by downloading the Civic Media app and texting it through. It's just like our other contests we've done before in the past. Download that Civic Media app right to your phone. It's free. It's available in your app store. So, get it loaded up, get it ready to go, and you can text us directly to the show. And you can do that anytime you want, honestly.
Yes.
If you want to get in touch with us, you can use the Civic Media to call us or to text us. Very versatile app it is. So
it is. It's among the most versatile. Download the Civic Media app. We got that word of the show. We'll say the word of the show coming up in just a little bit. One reminder also, today is the final day of voting.
Yes.
In Fat Bird Week, Wisconsin. Big competition.
I think, let me look at
Can you
today's.
check the status? I think we're down to the final 2.
We're down to the last contest of this competition.
Last voting day.
It is the spherical white-throated sparrow versus the rotund ruby-throated hummingbird.
Tough matchup.
Very tough matchup. And I must say, I was incredibly wrong about this whole thing. I thought, as I stated with Emma Schatz last week, I said the dark-eyed Junco in the Trunco is going to be the winner because the name alone is going to garner all the votes. Untrue.
Yeah.
Knocked out in round 2 by the spherical white-throated sparrow.
It was an upset.
Oh, and the winner is not winner. The last 2.
The last 2.
Oh, yeah, that's what I just said.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I was looking at the wrong
He's
bracket.
getting
here.
all excited.
We're
We're not going to know the winner until Monday because Emma Schatz is going to come back.
I'm way more invested in this than I should be.
Which delights me to no end.
I understand gambling now.
But it's like the NCAA brackets.
Yes.
And
But
then,
much more fun.
well, and also, see, there are upsets that you never saw coming, which is why we get so invested
it's
into
like
this.
Duke being knocked out in the prelims. I mean,
So
geez,
exciting.
That made Calvin laugh.
Make sure that you get in and cast your vote. Today is the final day to vote for Fad Bird Week, Wisconsin. We'll put a link in the show notes. So we make sure that your vote gets cast. And then Emma Schatz is going to be here on Monday. She'll be here around 10:20, about an hour after the official winner is announced.
Yeah.
Big news.
Find out the winner right here on Matenaer On Air.
It's going to be big news. All right. We wanted to start off with just a little trade talk. Donald Trump yesterday announcing a new trade pact with Britain, which he has called the first of many agreements with countries around the world. Not everyone is impressed necessarily by this deal because Trump said the 10% minimum tariff that he applied on all countries after the negotiation with Britain, it stays at 10%.
Boy, the art of the deal, am I right?
It's more like the art of the spiel.
Ooh.
And now he's shouting, what a great deal this is fantastic. Well, again, you applied these 10% tariffs to all countries, and then you had negotiations with Britain, and now we're still at 10%. Yay!
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 Or as an excited English person would say, yay!
Yay! I also think that this was interesting. The Washington Post has an article about this big trade deal that we made with Britain. He was talking about tariffs on British automobiles.
Yeah.
Which were 25%.
Mm-hmm.
But our president personally intervened. Personally intervened to lower the tariff to 10% on Rolls-Royce, Jaguars, and Bentleys. Rolls-Royce, Jaguars, and Bentleys. Our president personally intervened to lower that 25% tariff to 10%. Here is what our president said, quote, "Some are very special cars. That's really handmade stuff. I said, yeah, let's help them out with that one. That's different than one that comes out and builds millions of cars. So we want to make sure that all the people who are buying Bentleys and Rolls and Jaguars aren't going to be hit as hard with tariffs as those of us who cannot afford to buy those kinds of automobiles."
Just once again,
man of the people,
saying the quiet part out loud. I care about the people who can afford Rolls Royce. By the way, if you are under the age of 1,000 and own a Rolls Royce, I don't understand you. Jaguars and Bentley. I think Bentleys are the most expensive of the three. And I don't know if you know this. If someone else knows this, please tell me now. Let me know. Let us know. He says they're handmade. I'm pretty sure all cars nowadays come off assembly lines.
Yes.
They're not being hammered out by hand.
No.
Custom made order by order.
No.
So it's
not like, because they used to be.
Yeah, but not
But no, that
anymore.
doesn't. No,
So
that doesn't happen anymore.
he doesn't
And I
care.
actually stumbled upon an article talking about that very thing. There's so much automation now
Yeah.
in auto manufacturing, which actually in some instances is better than handmade.
Absolutely.
But you're paying for it like buying a Gucci handbag. That's what you're paying for, the name.
You're paying for the
You're paying
medallion
for the name.
on the front and
Yeah.
the back of the card. That's it.
And at least one of these is are made by a German company.
Yeah. Okay.
Details, picky little things. 855-752-4842 if you would like to jump in on the art of the spiel. Brian from Milwaukee is on the line. Good morning, Brian. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Yeah, as soon as you guys said the name of the cars, Rolls Royce, Bentley, and that, I'm just sitting there thinking, oh my God, who in the world, middle class citizen like you and I is going to be able to afford that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, then his rich, buddies that work for, CEOs of Amazon, Facebook, and Target and everyone else that he's catering to,
Yeah.
It's amazing. And again, this is a quote from him. I'm not making this up.
Yeah.
He personally intervened because they're special cars, those Jaguars, Bentleys, and Rolls.
For special people.
For special people, not you and me, Brian.
No.
Not most of us who are going to work every day.
The unwashed, take your Kias and get off my property.
Yeah, you guys can handle a 25% tariff. That's fine, but not Not those Bentley buyers, right, Brian?
Yep.
Well, a question I would have,
Thank you, Brian. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much for listening, as always.
this is a tariff on British cars.
Yes.
Other than Bentleys, Jaguars, and Rolls-Royce, and you said one of them is manufactured actually in Germany.
Or is it owned by a German company?
How many other British cars are we? Because I know Cooper, but I think they make those cars.
Mini Coupe?
Mini Coupes make them in the United States as well, I believe. I don't think are we importing a lot of cars from England?
That's a good question. Calvin, did you want to jump in on this?
Yeah, I have a list pulled up of British car manufacturers. You have Aston Martin, Bentley, Jaguar, Land Rover, Lotus, which I'm not really familiar with.
I've heard of Lotus.
McLaren, MG, which I'm also not familiar with.
MGs, yep.
Mini, Morgan, not familiar with. Rolls-Royce, and Vauxhall.
Mini is the only one that is one of, that I know of. Those are not luxuries. Like McLarens are like $300,000 a piece. So my guess is that they'll go back and say, "Oh, let's add McLaren in there, and let's add that." You know, these are. It seems like luxury cars are the main export of England to America. As Aston Martins, my goodness,
Right. We can all afford one
Yeah.
of those. Come on.
Well, with no tariffs or lower tariffs, now I can finally afford. I can afford a Rolls Royce.
Well, and if you don't like the way things are going here, you can always move. We can always move, you guys.
Where should we move to?
To a different country, which Donald Trump also mentioned the other day. Calvin, do we have that clip from President Trump, please, talking about a country most of us have probably never heard of?
And if Mattel, I don't know, I'm not so sure. They also said they're the only country I've heard. They said, well, we're going to go counter. We're going to try going someplace else. That's okay. Let him go, and we'll put 100% tariff on his toys, and he won't sell one toy in the United States, and that's their biggest market.
The country of Mattel.
This is like when he was talking about the Revolutionary War, or the Revolutionary War, and
The
he said we
airports.
shut down the airports.
It's all good.
But Joe Biden, totally not. He's
Losing it.
Totally losing it, folks. My
Losing it.
goodness.
Yeah, the country of Mattel.
Their main export, plastic.
Well, but again, who needs dolls?
He's got a doll thing.
That would be a whole nother show that we could probably spend on that. You can always join us if you would like to call or text at 855-752-4842. Don't forget as well, coming up in just a little bit, perhaps within moments, we're going to give you the word you want to text in throughout our show today and get you in the running for a 4-pack of Milwaukee Brewers tickets. Great seats, by the way. These are club-level seats. As Greg likes to say, the seats are very cushy.
Very comfy.
Very comfy
place
seats.
to sit.
So that is just on the way. Stay close. You are listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. We'll be right back. On the board, coming to you from our studio here at Radio Park in Racine. No matter where you are listening in the state, perhaps you're listening at Park Falls
Ooh.
or Hayward,
Or
Butternut,
Amory
as well.
Amory.
You can always join us at the same number, 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter as promised. We got tickets for you, baby.
Oh, baby.
So grab your phone, open up the Civic Media app. This is the word that you want to text in via the Civic Media app until the end of the show. So you have until 11 o'clock. The word to text in is play, P-L-A-Y. Text in the word play via the Civic Media app, and you are in the running to pick up a 4-pack of Milwaukee Brewers tickets for an upcoming game. Your next chance will be during the Tom Hartman Show from 11 to 2. You'll get a different keyword from Todd from 2 to 4, and yet another keyword in Maggie's show from 4 to 6. But the word you want to text in right now via the Civic Media app, the word to text in is play, P-L-A-Y. In the running for that 4-pack of Brewers tickets, and good luck. I'd love to see the entries come in to find out where you all are. Like we got Adam in Oregon, and Ann in Chippewa Falls, Lynn in Oconomowoc, Kurt in Waukesha, Jeff in Racine. Ooh, Leah from over the border.
Whoa, where's...
I'm assuming she's in Chicago, in Illinois.
Congratulations on your new pope.
Now, Mary in Fond du Lac, keep them coming in. The word to text in, you have until the end of our show.
Yes.
Text in the word play, P-L-A-Y, for that 4-pack of Milwaukee Brewers tickets. And then your next chance coming up from 11 to 2 with the Tom Hartman Show.
Fantastic.
We did want to talk a little bit about the new Pope, Pope Leo the 14th.
Mm-hmm.
I was driving when I heard the news yesterday. It's been interesting to see some of the reactions.
Yeah.
Because initially, from what I saw and what I was hearing, there was a lot of excitement on the far right about an American Pope.
Mm-hmm.
This is great. The Pope is from America. This is huge. Once they researched Pope Leo the 14th a little bit more, that kind of flipped pretty quickly there.
Yeah.
MAGA host says new Pope does not bode well for Trump supporters. God save the church.
Pretty sure God's saving the church right now by putting, I mean, in the belief of divine providence, I would say it's part of his plan then. This is kind of.
But don't forget, this is the group that says that empathy is a sin.
Mm-hmm.
I saw some other MAGA poster yesterday saying Pope Leo the 14th has suicidal empathy.
I don't know what that means.
I don't either.
So I'll take it literally. He has empathy for those who are in such a place where they feel like that ending it all is an option. Boy, what a terrible person to feel something and maybe try to reach out to help them. Wow, what a wildly ineffective human being.
And far right MAGA supporter Laura Loomer.
Oh, great, she's talking again.
Who has the ear of the president. She has encouraged him to fire certain people, which she's done.
Yeah.
Laura Loomer called it gross. Gross? Really? Okay.
I bet she has the worst comebacks. Like, oh yeah, well you are gross. Okay, so first of all, and I put this in our company-wide chat, I will accept all donations of humble pie and or crow because I absolutely said there will never be I felt like the Vatican, the Catholic Church from the deepest European tradition would reject an American Pope outright. We don't want your on this religion. When they announced that, I was like, oh no, because I was very nervous. Because Francis was a polarizing figure.
Yes, he was.
Within the church.
Oh, yes.
So I was really nervous that maybe this conclave was going to push more towards a conservative. And then I found out that Francis actually appointed like more than half of the cardinals who were able to vote, and that this gentleman now, who is Pope Leo, was not handpicked, but Francis brought him made him a cardinal and really wanted him to
succeed him
because, as we see now, he has a message of love, acceptance. I mean, we don't know what he's going to do for the future,
And there are also questions about whether or not he will be an ally to the LGBTQ plus community.
Mhm.
You know, he is not. He's not a foaming at the mouth liberal. He's
No.
not.
No.
He's
No.
not, at least from what I have read and what I've looked at. But it was interesting. I did go and look at Pope Leo the 13th.
Yeah.
That's where he picked his name. He's Pope Leo the 14th.
Yeah.
Pope Leo the 13th in the early 1800s was very pro-union.
There you go. I just feel like, I mean, yeah, we don't know where his allegiances are going to lie on those certain points, but I feel like if he was someone that Francis brought in and trusted and cared for, those types of issues are going to be one he will be at least be he will listen to, and he will think about it, and he won't just outright say no. I have hope for this Pope. Hope for the Pope.
Hope for the Pope.
And
Well, and as I've long maintained, MAGA Christians, they love the Old Testament.
Yep.
They're pro-smiting.
Yeah.
They're very smitey.
Yeah.
New Testament, not so much. And I did actually post on Blue Sky yesterday for people who are having meltdowns about Pope Leo the 14th. I just think it's important that you remember it's called the New Testament not because it was the latest book.
Good morning, Will. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can. Can you hear me all right?
Yep, you sound good.
All right. Great to hear. Glad to hear that.
We come back in about 4 minutes.
All right. No worries.
Good morning. Welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Dr. Slide on the board. Coming to you from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us, call or text. The number is the same, 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. It is underway. Our statewide text to win contest up for grabs. A 4-pack of tickets to see our Milwaukee Brewers at a later game. You want to grab your telephone, open up the Civic Media app, and text in the word play, P-L-A-Y. Text in the word play. You have until 11 a.m. to text in that word play, P-L-A-Y, using the Civic Media app, and then you are in the running for that 4-pack of Brewers tickets.
That's going to be next Friday.
The game next Friday?
Next Friday versus the Minnesota Twins.
All right. Text in the word play, P-L-A-Y. And good luck. Tom Hartman will have another word from 11 to 2, Todd Alba from 2 to 4, and Maggie Dawn from 4 to 6. So you got a whole bunch of chances to enter and pick up some Brewers tickets. Really glad to have our next guest with us. I talked to you years ago. Probably does not remember me. Will Sue is here from Sue Ginseng Farms. Good morning, Will. Thanks so much for joining us. How you doing?
Good morning. And I do remember you.
I'm glad.
You are not easy to forget.
Oh dear, did I say something terrible?
That was a compliment, Jane.
It's a compliment.
Thank you, Will. For one thing, I think a lot of folks still don't realize how much ginseng Wisconsin grows and how much ginseng Wisconsin used to export. But this has been a big crop in Wisconsin for a very long time.
Yeah, the crop goes back well over 100 years to the Fromm brothers, who started the industry in Hamburg, or they're credited with starting the industry. A number of farmers were growing in the late 1800s, early 1900s as Wisconsin was being founded. And as more immigrants and more farmers moved to this area and acquired land, they started farming ginseng. And Wisconsin has been known for its ginseng for over 100 years and really expanded along with the dairy industry. So we generate, in terms of an industry today, about 1 million pounds a year. That's down from the 1990s, when the industry was growing close to 3 million pounds a year. But we've seen it decline, in part more recently due to the trade war and tariffs, but also as the rest of agriculture in Wisconsin has faced obstacles, so has ginseng.
Well, and if I remember correctly, Will, ginseng is very much a hands-on crop. It needs a lot of tending, and there are a lot of things that you cannot do with machinery when you are growing ginseng. Is that accurate?
Yes, it's a very labor-intensive crop, and it takes 5 years to grow. So if you include the year that the seed is basically getting ready to germinate, the total crop cycle takes about 5 years from seed to harvest. And so that makes it extremely difficult. And then you add the labor factor. We aren't able to spray Roundup and some of the broadleaf weed killers because there isn't genetic modification or engineering of the seed. We pick all the seeds by hand. We harvest a lot of the ginseng by hand. And then even when the product is dried and finished, a lot of the processes are trimming the ginseng roots and packaging those ginseng roots by hand as well.
Yeah, so it's massively labor intensive. It really is. I think I told you last time, but good heavens, it's like you have to sing to those plants every night. They just really require a great deal of hands-on care.
Yeah, there's a lot of tending to it, and it's a very fickle plant to grow. The growing region is very restrictive. It only grows typically in northern climates or at elevation, certain soil types. So it has to be well-drained soils. They can't have too much water. They can't have too much sunlight. So if you've ever driven through central Wisconsin and you see the shade fabric or the wood lath shade that is used to protect the plant, that's to simulate the forest shade, because this is a forest land plant that's native to North America. And so that shade, because it cannot support the weight of snow, has to be rolled up every fall, unrolled every spring. And we have to do everything underneath that shade cloth. And in the middle of summer, black shade cloth that attracts a lot of heat, it is very backbreaking work to be hand weeding those plants underneath the sweltering shade fabric.
And ginseng is primarily grown for its medicinal purposes, correct?
Yes, it is used as a traditional Chinese medicine in China. It has been since probably the mid 1700s, when the United States and the colonies, both British and French colonies, started exporting wild ginseng to southern China, primarily Guangzhou and what is now Hong Kong. And so those trading ports were some of the first places that American ginseng, the wild species, was imported from the colonies. That was harvested by French and British and Native American individuals, and then traded, obviously, along the traditional trade routes. And so that has been used as a medicine in China now for close to 300 years.
If you're just joining us, Will Su is our guest. He is the owner of Su Ginseng Farms here in Wisconsin.
Will, you mentioned when we started this discussion that 30 plus years ago that the ginseng output was about 3 million. You said 3 million pounds?
Yes, close to 3 million pounds a year.
And it has tapered off over the years due to various factors. But one of the things we did want to talk to you about was that, and we've been discussing this point a lot, is the current tariffs and the first tariff war, and how that is affecting you as a ginseng farmer and a small business owner, and what effects they have to the quote unquote backbone of America, as politicians like to refer to you as.
Yeah, I mean, I think as farmers, we face a number of obstacles every year, and tariffs is just another one on top of things. You have to deal with weather, you have to deal with the labor, you have to deal with various market conditions. Unfortunately, tariffs are one of those artificial market conditions that we've put on our trade with China and other countries. The first trade war back in 2018, 2019 added about a 30% tariff onto our product. And that stayed on for the last 6 or 7 years, from the first Trump administration throughout the Biden administration.
Right.
And then with the most recent declaration here and escalation in April, we've gone from roughly 32%, 37% tariffs. We are now standing at, based on our calculations and the industry calculations, 147% tariffs. That makes it really difficult to sell this product. And I think you have to put it in terms, I think, that consumers here in the U.S. need to understand, which if you're going into a drugstore and you're looking at an over-the-counter medicine, which American ginseng is an over-the-counter medicine in China, and you're looking at an over-the-counter medicine and it might cost $30 or $50. In China, a few ounces of ginseng would probably cost somewhere between $30 and $50 US. If you go in the next day and that package of ginseng is now $120, and this is an over-the-counter medicine which you do take to help benefit your health, you have to ask yourself, is that medicine worthwhile?
Sure.
Do I have the money to be able to spend on that product? And that's a difficult decision. Every consumer is going to make a slightly different decision, but it's artificial. It's not that the farmers are charging more. It's not that it costs more to grow or make or manufacture or process. It's literally the government intervening in foreign policy and saying one of the foreign policy tools we have is tariffs. And to combat, quote unquote, unfair trade or the stealing of jobs, we're going to put these tariffs on products that aren't related to what we're arguing over.
Right.
And force consumers to pay more so that the government can recoup funds. Now, what the government chooses to do with those funds, like any other tax, is up to the government, but the consumer pays for it.
What are you seeing now? So overnight, and again, you had mentioned the 145% tariffs that Donald Trump initially put on China. Now, overnight, he said 80%. Scott Bessent, his trade advisor, is traveling to Switzerland to meet with Chinese officials, I believe, today over the weekend. And so in the middle of the night, Trump posted, how about 80%? How does that work for you? Okay, that's better than 145, but it's still, I mean, come on.
I'm thinking of a number 7. It's
uncertainty is so hard in this industry. It takes us 4 to 5 years to grow this crop. There's so many variables that are beyond your control, and then you throw tariffs on top of it. We had COVID. We thought the first trade war and the second trade war, first trade war and COVID, we called that our first whammy and our second whammy. This is our third whammy, and it's a moving target now, and you can't plan. So it's very difficult, other than be really conservative and reduce plantings. And that's what we've seen. We've seen a number of farmers choose to exit this industry, choose to, as they get older, just take almost like an early retirement rather than
Yep.
consider passing it on to their kids. And we've seen this before. When I graduated high school here in Wausau in the mid 1990s, Canada was ramping up production very quickly. And they are now one of the largest producers, if not the largest producers in the world. And my dad told me when I graduated UW-Madison in 2000, he's like, why would you move back home and be a poor farmer? Because you couldn't make money growing ginseng in the early 2000s. And a number of farmers exited the industry then, or they completely exited dairy to go into ginseng, or they exited ginseng to go completely into dairy. And if my kids were that age and thinking about coming back to the farm or to the family business, I would tell them the exact same thing. We don't know how
Right.
you're going to be able to make money in the future in this industry. So why would you get into it? So 15 years ago, when I returned to the farm, I there were about 250 farmers here in central Wisconsin. Today, there are fewer than 80 of us left growing ginseng
In 15 years.
in 15 years. And there used to be 1,000 in the 90s, over 1,000.
Well, that leads me to a question, and I know it's hard because it's a forecasting question, but you say it's diminished from 3 to 1 million. Do you see what the output might be for this year or the next 2 years? Is it going to be less than 1 million? Is it going to be even less than that? Because these tariffs are going to just absolutely punish you for no reason, it seems.
It's going to be a gradual decline is my expectation. And then a few years out in the future, might be 5 years, might be 7 years, it will be probably a market decline unless we get more farmers into this industry, or the big guys will get bigger. That's the other option. But I don't think either is good for our industry. It's not good for agriculture. It's not good for our local economy.
We got about 2 minutes left. Will, how many people do you employ?
At our peak, probably 10, 12 years ago, before all of this happened, we were employing close to, including our farms and our sales offices here in North America, probably close to 100 to 120 individuals. Today, we're down to about 75 to 80. So we've cut about a third of our workforce locally or in the U.S. And my expectation is that we'll probably continue to decline as the market output declines and the market demand for our product declines due to the tariffs.
And I'm sure you're concerned as well about once you lose those markets and they find a different supplier, how do you get them back?
Yeah, 90% of the ginseng that's grown in Wisconsin goes to Greater China. So that would be mainland China, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. So if you don't have access to the market, you're talking about a very small market for Wisconsin grown ginseng because it is primarily ethnic Chinese consumers who are consuming this product.
Will Sue owns Sue Ginseng Farm in the Wausau area. Thank you so very much for your time, Will. We'll check back in with you in a couple of months if you're willing, and we'll do a little update. Thank you so much.
Looking forward to it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Stay with us. Coming up next, The Dog Ate My Homework Administration. That's all on the way. You're listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
got some good excuses, and your alibis are great.
Oh, we got to keep this going, Kevin.
Oh, yeah.
Think by now you would have used up all your life. Who are you gonna blame it on?
Good morning and welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Dr. Slide, good one there on the board, coming to you from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us, call or text. The number is the same, 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. I do want to share this with you real quickly. This from the Journal Sentinel. The Ozaukee County Sheriff responding to a dangerous subject. There is a shelter-in-place order in Fredonia. A tactical situation happening on Fox Glen Road in Fredonia. Nearby residents are evacuating. The Ozaukee County Sheriff's Office says the subject is still in his residence, but is considered extremely dangerous, heavily armed. Ongoing attempts are being made to de-escalate the situation. Washington County SWAT is helping out. Milwaukee County SWAT will be assisting the situation. So again, the sheriff's office said it is asking residents of Fox Glen Road, Pheasant Lane, and Partridge Lane in Fredonia either to stay inside your home or be escorted out of the area by an officer. This is an ongoing tactical situation again in the city of Fredonia. I wanted to give you a little heads up about that. Before we go to the top of the hour news, Dan Schaefer will be here in hour number 2, Civic Media's political editor, but I wanted to spend a little time talking about this is really the dog ate my homework administration. We talked about this yesterday a little bit.
Yeah.
Sean Duffy, Department of Transportation, everything that's wrong with the FAA is the previous administration's fault. Don't look at me, he did it.
Yeah.
Don't look at me, my brother did it. Don't look at me, the dog ate my homework. Yeah, we have yet another example of the dog ate my homework administration. The director of the FBI, Kash Patel,
Oh, crazy eyes? Yeah.
was in front of the Senate Appropriations Committee yesterday. His budget request was due.
Yes.
This isn't a surprise. This kind of is part of the whole procedure of you come with your budget request and then they consider it and whether or not they're going to pass it.
Yeah.
And so you have to bring this to the Appropriations Committee in order to move forward. Not a surprise. This is part of the job.
Yep.
We have a little exchange between the head of the FBI, Kash Patel, and Washington's Patty Murray. Calvin, can we play that clip, please?
When should we expect this FY25 spend plan for the FBI? Have you seen it? Have you reviewed it? When will we get it?
I'll get you an answer, ma'am. I don't have a timeline on that.
What?
It was due last week by law.
I understand.
And your answer
No,
is
you
you
don't.
just understand. You're not going to follow the law?
My answer is that I am following the law, and I'm working with my interagency partners to do this and get you the budget that you are required to have.
That was due last week.
And
bit
you
of
have no
attitude.
timeline?
No.
Well, we also need a full budget request, not a single paragraph full of wild talking points that we saw with the skinny budget proposal. We're now having a budget hearing without a budget request.
Yeah.
So, Director Patel, where is the FY 2026 budget request for the FBI?
It's being worked on, ma'am.
Have you reviewed it? Have you approved it?
Not yet.
When will we get it?
As soon as I can get it from my interagency partners and get it approved.
6 months from now?
I don't know, ma'am. I'm not
Well,
going to make
how
up a
do we
timeline.
as Congress do our budget and our work without that request and without the spend plan?
Well, ma'am, I'm here. I'm
don't
doing the
care.
best I can. I can't make up answers. I'm going to commit to you to work on getting you the information you need.
That is insufficient and deeply disturbing. No response?
I've given my response.
That went well. Yeah, dog ate it. The dog ate it.
You know,
We had the report ready. We had the budget request ready, and then somebody left the dog alone in the office, and now the dog ate it, and I don't know where it is.
listen, didn't you get my paragraph? Isn't that enough? Give me money. I loved it. And we didn't have enough. We don't have enough time to play this one either. But if you have a chance, folks, Google Chris Murphy, Kristi Noem, and watch him basically do the same thing to her, saying you are running your department insufficiently, illegally, and over budget. You're reaching over budget soon. When these loudmouth MAGA elites get on the camera, they talk and talk and talk and bloviate and whatever, make America great again. Selfies in a prison in El Salvador. But the moment they have to produce like professionals
Yes.
who are in charge of massive amounts of people, massive amounts of money, they're like little kids who have been cornered by their parents. Who broke the mirror?
He did.
I don't know.
It wasn't me.
How do you not know? You're the only one who's here. You're in charge of this. I love seeing them squirm like this because it just shows they have nothing.
This extends to other members of the Trump administration.
Yes.
Veterans Affairs Secretary Doug Collins dismissive this week about the plan to cut 83,000 jobs. Lawmakers were asking him who's going to get fired. Oh, he had no answer. He has no answer on which workers will be targeted, but he's very angry. He's very angry that he's being questioned about it.
Oh.
But he has no specifics.
It's that pesky Congress, Jane.
Wanting details.
And working maybe for the people to make sure that the money is spent correctly. Yeah. The indignation they hold towards these individuals who are doing their job. I mean, the senator from Washington, I forgot her name just now.
Patty Murray.
Patty Murray. People are saying, oh, she destroyed. She doesn't destroy anybody. She's asking questions.
Your report is overdue by a week. When is it coming? I don't know.
By law, you had to turn this in. We don't have it yet. Well, you're breaking the law, buddy.
News is coming up next. And then when we return, Civic Media's political editor and creator of the Recombobulation Area will be here. We'll talk about stuff. I don't know what it's going to be yet. I'll let you know.
Boats.
Maybe in a couple weeks. You're listening to Matenaer On Air. The dog ate it on the Civic Media Radio Network.
So who are you gonna blame it on this time? So who are you gonna blame it on this time?
Good morning and welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Calvin Butenoff coming to you live from our studio here at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us, call or text. The number is the same, 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. It is the first Friday of our statewide Text to Win contest. Up for grabs, we have a 4-pack of Brewers tickets, club level seats, really nice seats. Here's what you need to do. Grab your phone, open up the Civic Media app, and text in the word PLAY, P-L-A-Y. You have until 11 o'clock this morning to text in the word PLAY, P-L-A-Y, and then you're in the running for that 4-pack of crew tickets. Your next chance will be in the Tom Hartman Show from 11 to 2, then Todd Alba from 2 to 4, and Maggie Dawn from 4 to 6 p.m. But right now, the word you want to text in via the Civic Media app is the word PLAY, P-L-A-Y, just like Ronnie in Horicon and Peter in New London and Kirk from Eau Claire. Love to see the entries coming in. Caesar in Madison. Text in the word PLAY, P-L-A-Y. You have until 11 o'clock. And again, we are playing for a 4-pack of Brewers tickets for next Friday.
Next Friday against the Twins.
Joining us, as he always does on Fridays, Civic Media's political editor and the creator of the multi-award-winning Recombobulation Area, Dan Schaefer, is here. Good morning, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Happy Friday to the good folks of Matenaer On Air and all of your great listeners. How are you guys doing? It's Friday. You making it through?
We are making it through. Happy it's Friday.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful, beautiful day.
Yeah.
And should be a beautiful weekend as well. But not a big surprise, I guess, after the Republicans got a hold of the budget suggested by Governor Tony Evers, that they stripped out everything essentially except for the word the and.
And even that, you know,
they had to take a couple of those out,
it became
too.
a debate. Yeah. But, you know, this is, we're in the season now where the budget process in the state of Wisconsin, where the rubber really is about to meet the road here. Yeah. So we had, the governor's budget proposal from a couple of months ago. We had listening sessions with the Joint Finance Committee at a number of sites throughout the state. And now this week, the Republican-controlled Joint Finance Committee, a 12-4 committee that includes members of both the Assembly and the Senate, had their executive session yesterday afternoon. And in it, as expected, they essentially gutted the governor's entire budget proposal. So they put out this list when they scheduled the meeting, the 48 hours before, or whatever they're required to do. And they just had a long list of these 600 plus items that they would be removing from the budget. So I think after, we're in the back half of Tony Evers' second term here. So we're accustomed to this era of divided government. Mm-hmm. And it just seems like we're replaying things over and over, because it has happened every time where the governor has put forth a budget proposal and the Republicans basically vote the entire thing down.
They light it on fire. Yeah. Essentially.
It seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like this is just further punishment for fair maps, because when fair maps came along, a lot of Republicans who didn't have to work for their districts and work for those seats got tossed out or didn't run. And then what they did was they decided they were going to try to legislate through Wisconsin constitutional amendments. Mm-hmm. And then they changed the makeup of certain committees in Madison. So there were far more Republicans than there were Democrats. And I think the Joint Finance Committee was one of them.
That has been 12-4 throughout the whole time. Yeah.
But it's this
this
constant thing of like, we didn't win, you will never win. Or I mean, they did win. They're still in charge.
Right.
But now it just seems blatant and adversarial, and with some sort of like tinge of, we're going to make you hurt.
Well, and I guess what amazes me is the lack of shame among the Joint Finance Committee. They held 4 listening sessions across the state. Mm-hmm. Some of them went on for hours. Yeah. We have one listener who waited for 9 hours to be able to make comments. And then we had an article yesterday from our Civic Media News team talking about the top 3 things that were the most important to the people who showed up at those Joint Finance Committee meetings. Yeah. It was childcare. These are things we've always talked about. Yeah. And we have these guys on the Joint Finance Committee who sit there and listen to this. And then, like they always do, they go back and they gut all of them.
Yep. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The top 3 items that they heard from in these Joint Finance Committee listening sessions were healthcare,
Yes.
education, and
And
childcare.
childcare.
Those are the top 3. Those are your kitchen table issues. Like for all the people who are talking about how Democrats want woke this and woke that, the people who showed up to say something about this were talking about healthcare, public education, and childcare. Perhaps not coincidentally, we've had contributors at the Recombobulation area write pieces about those 3 very issues
No kidding.
over the last couple of weeks. So check those out from Emily Cephos, Tim Krolch, Tim Faust, and the rest of the crew at the Recombobulation area. So go check that out. Corrine Hendrickson was the child care provider.
Just talked to her this week.
Yeah.
Yep.
She's been on the Civic Media airways a number of times. So these are clearly big issues. There were nods to, at least when it comes to childcare, there were nods to funding childcare from Assembly, Republicans and candidates who in some of these swing districts where this became a big issue. I know Bob Donovan, who defeated Lou Ann Bird by a slim margin in that race, was talking about wanting to fund childcare in some of his campaign messaging. Will that actually come to fruition? We'll see. But I do think because we have these tighter margins, it is going to put the bullseye on some of these legislators who, it's going to be incumbent on us to watch what these votes, how these legislators are voting on these certain issues. But it's, they're going to have to defend these in 2026 in what might be not the greatest political environment for Republicans on the ballot.
Well, and that's the other thing too is Bob Donovan, great example, because he said, I want to fund childcare, but just like we were seeing with Derek Van Orton in the third, he's saying, SNAP benefits will not be reduced by a nickel. Then he votes for the budget blueprint. And so I feel like now what it is you say, I will support these kitchen table items, but then when the rubber hits the road, they say, well, there's nothing I can do about it.
Well, but that's the same thing that they've done with mental health.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What mental health?
For how many years now? Every time we have another mass shooting, it's not the guns, it's mental health. But when it comes to actually funding mental health, they're nowhere to be seen.
No.
Yeah, and you go through this list of 600 plus things. There are items on mental health. There's items on lead poisoning. Each one of these could be its own story. I feel like there are like 600 stories to be told here. They're just like Republicans said no to legalizing marijuana. Republicans said no to housing initiatives. The Republicans said no to veterans health care. All these different kinds of things that were in the proposal for the budget. And I think to a certain extent there's like an aspirational type of quality with this that Governor Evers is putting certain things out there.
He shoots pretty high sometimes.
Sure, but it also gets to the point where you have to come. The Republicans have just so stubbornly refused to come to the center and negotiate on any of this. Like they have to go through the motions and do this every time. But they could do this differently. They could take more pieces of the governor's budget proposal and actually have the argument instead of just like, we're getting rid of everything and building it on our own. And then putting the onus on Evers to use his partial veto powers and then criticizing those partial veto powers.
Yes.
And one thing I mentioned when Corrine Hendrickson was here a couple days ago, these are also great items from a politician standpoint to take home. Like, hey, we have a lead problem here in our county, because this is not a Milwaukee thing. This is a statewide thing.
Mm-hmm.
The PFAS thing is a statewide thing.
I'm fighting to make sure that we are getting the money we need to take care of these problems. I love veterans. They all love veterans on 9/11, Veterans Day, Patriots Day, whatever they want. These are items that if I was a voter in those counties or those, like, why did you vote against these things? My husband is a vet. My grandpa was a vet. We have lead problems. We have PFAS. Why did you vote against this? Why are you not helping us? And these are simple items you can go home to your constituents with and say, hey, we're doing the good work. But we're mindful of spending, but we're still taking care of you. Instead of just this wholesale gutting where you're just like, no, maybe we'll let you get paper clips.
It's so frustrating. It is. And it's just the lack of change throughout this. Like, I know it's a lot of the same people in leadership. It's Robin Voss is still the assembly speaker. It's a lot of the same people. It's Howard Markline. It's Howard Markline. Yep. It's the same people who have been there for a long time. But at some point, don't you think, like, Republicans keep losing in statewide races if it's not Donald Trump on the ballot, basically, right? Yeah. And so wouldn't at some point these legislators recognize that, hey, we have to do something for the people of Wisconsin, or else we're going to get voted out. We're going to keep losing races for governor. We're going to keep losing races for attorney general. We're going to keep losing races for Wisconsin Supreme Court. Like, at some point, don't they recognize that stuff like this, stuff like the gavel in, gavel out, the stubborn refusal to ever even have the conversation with the other side, I think is really hurting them politically, in addition to hurting the state and the people of the state.
If you're just joining us, Dan Schaefer is here, Civic Media's political editor and also the founder of the Recombobulation Area, talking about the Republicans essentially gutting Governor Evers' entire proposed budget. I think part of the problem, though, Dan, is, and we talk about people staying in their own bubbles, and I think for Republican lawmakers in particular, they really live in bubbles. And when people show up at these joint finance committee hearings, I think they've got themselves convinced that these are outliers, that these people are outliers, and they're all being paid by George Soros. I know lots of people are waiting for checks. I do think that some of them really genuinely believe that.
I think you're right. I mean, I grew up in a very right-wing part of the state, and there's no place where the bubble is thicker than that part of the state. When you just, it's such an insular way of looking at the world and looking at the state and looking at our politics. And I do think, you're right. They probably just see the people showing up at these events, and they're just like, these are the people who are around at like 10:30 on a Friday morning or whatever.
You must be a moocher and a leech if you don't have a job, and you can show up at these meetings that we hold during the day.
Right. But if you're holding a certain kind of flag, you're going to be a patriot in the middle of the day for these things.
That's
too,
different rules.
Different rules.
Different rules.
Yeah.
I think to go back to what you said about, why are they acting like this in the time when they get voted out when Donald Trump isn't on the ballot? I think it's because they just don't care, and it's harder to work and do the work and get to know your constituents and the issues that they face than to actually. So they're going to kick and scream until they're gone.
Yeah.
And then when they're gone, they're going to say it's a woke America, a woke Wisconsin that got rid of us. It was rigged, blah blah blah. Because I mean, all those people who dropped out of their races when the fair maps came along, they knew the writing on the wall. They knew they weren't going to be able to charm their way back into their seats. They left because they're like, oh, this is work now? I think it has to do everything with they really don't care about the people. They care about the power, and they're going to hold on to it with every last breath they have without having to do the actual work to keep it. So.
Well, here's another piece of this, too. There is a divide that WisPolitics has reported on about like the Republicans wanting to pass their main priority, which is a tax cut, as a separate bill. And Evers wants it to be in the budget.
Right.
So the difference there is that like if Republicans pass their tax cut, what's the onus on them to actually even pass a budget? Because they don't want to even do any of these 600 plus things that the governor wants to do.
We're going to continue our conversation with Dan Schaefer. Keep it right here. You are listening to Matenaer On Air, coming to you across the vast, statewide, countrywide. You can pick us up in New Zealand on the app.
Yeah.
Civic Media Radio Network. We'll be right back. welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, and Calviente on the board, coming to you from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us, and you can leave a comment if you're watching the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. We got baseball action coming up in about an hour. Our broadcast starts at 11:35. The Crew at the Tampa Bay Rays. You can listen to the game, but you have to listen to actual terrestrial radio. WRCE in Richland Center, WISS in Oshkosh, WRJN here in Racine and Kenosha, WCQM in Park Falls, and WBZH in Hayward. The Rays hosting the Crews. Our broadcast starts on those stations at 11:35. Right now, our friend and colleague and social media, Civic Media's political editor, it's Friday, words are hard, Dan Schaefer is here. Also the creator of the recombobulation area. We were talking about what's left in Governor Evers' budget, not much. We also wanted to talk a little bit about this didn't take long, the new challenge to congressional maps that has happened just this week.
Actually, two challenges that WisPolitics was reporting about another one this morning. So there are now two challenges asking the Wisconsin Supreme Court to overturn the congressional maps. Now, of course, about a year and a half ago or whatever, they overturned the legislative maps.
Right.
That was a much bigger deal. Those were much more egregiously gerrymandered. The violations to the state constitution were much more apparent. But the congressional maps are now being challenged yet again. This also happened, after Janet Protasewicz was seated. When they brought those challenges forth for the legislative maps, the Supreme Court declined to hear the case on the congressional maps at the time. Now, I haven't quite seen as much on the second of the two challenges or whatever, but the first one that made headlines yesterday from Mark Elias and his legal team, it seems pretty much the same as the challenge that the Supreme Court refused to hear 2 years ago or whatever it is. The only difference, I guess, is that the court ruling on the legislative maps essentially ruled that the least change principle upon which these maps were drawn is BS. Which it is.
In so many words.
It is a completely manufactured nonsense term. The Wisconsin Constitution and the portion that applies to redistricting says after every decade or however they use it with the phrasing, they will apportion and district anew. Least change, district anew. So that is a completely invented nonsense term that the then conservative majority on the Wisconsin Supreme Court used to bake in gerrymandered maps for another 10 years. So you will hear now some right-wingers say, hey, these are Tony Evers maps. Well, they are technically, yes, but they were drawn under the rules of saying you need to have these least change maps, which those are nonsense. So challenging the least change makes sense, but I also do wonder if the same challenge coming from the same group that the Wisconsin Supreme Court refused to hear 2 years ago, if they hear it now, does that affect people's trust in the court?
Fair question.
Yeah.
Fair question. Dan, I would like you to explain for people who are listening the legislative. What is the difference between the legislative maps and the congressional maps?
Okay,
because for the average, to me, it sounds like, aren't they the same thing?
I thought we just did all the maps thing a year ago.
Exactly.
So we have the state legislative maps. We have the 99 districts of the Wisconsin State Assembly and the 33 districts of the Wisconsin State Senate. So these are, the state capitol, the state budget, those things that we're talking about. The congressional maps, those are federal. So those are our 8 federal congressional districts, are 8 members of Congress, which currently is broken down 6 Republicans and just 2 Democrats. So I think part of the challenge and I think this is more than a fair point, is saying that hey, we have a 50-50 state in Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. Shouldn't we have maps that more closely reflect that instead of having a map that looks more like a deep red state where you have this 6-2 imbalance, and then you have really the 2 districts are just kind of the Madison and Milwaukee area districts with Democratic representation. So, and again, I think the state legislature, it was so much more obvious how gerrymandered those were. The the 3rd congressional district, it was held by Ron Kine. Derek Van Orden flipped it. It was a close race last year. I think, Rebecca Cook or whoever the candidate might
Ends
be,
up being.
even on the current maps, I think has a decent chance. That I think some of the smart prognosticators have put this in toss-up territory, given that Cook ran a really strong race 2 years ago. And then the 1st district is another one that is like in the kind of more closely competitive race. This is held by Brian Stile. This is kind of like southern and southeastern Wisconsin.
Janesville.
We are in the 1st congressional district right now here at Radio Park and Racine.
Right.
And so this is, that was Paul Ryan's old district. Style has consistently overperformed, and even as last cycle, Peter Barca had some funding from the national groups and all of that. So I do think you do have to recognize like some of the on the ground realities of what's happening in some of these districts to recognize why it is 6-2. Now, a couple of the other ones that I do think are problematic is just like you have some and I've written a lot about the Fox Valley and its importance statewide. This Fox Valley is currently split by the current congressional map. So Oshkosh is in a district represented by Glenn Grothman, and Appleton is in a district represented by Tony Weed. I think those cities in the Fox Valley should be part of one cohesive district, but then you get into challenges like, okay, what does it take away? Who gets these other seats? And then, it's a complicated process.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Are you recombobulated yet?
We're getting recombobulated.
I was less than I was before. So
We will continue recombobulating with Civic Media's political editor Dan Schaefer after the bottom of the hour news. Making movies in Wisconsin. We'll talk about that next. Stay close. You are listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
Once I get strapped in the tube, wheels up and we'll be rocking. Getting out of frozen Wisconsin. I need you to recombobulate me. I want you to recombobulate me. I need you to recombobulate me. Won't somebody recombobulate me?
morning. Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Calviente on the board. Coming to you from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us. Call or text at 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. One correction for you. We do have coverage of today's Brewers-Rays game happening in Florida, but the game starts our coverage starts rather at 5:35.
Correct. Game is at 6:05.
6:05 tonight. Again, the crew at Tampa Bay Rays. Our coverage starting about 5:35 today on certain stations across the network. Also, you have until 11 o'clock to text in the word play, P-L-A-Y. Text in the word play via the Civic Media app. It's your chance to pick up a 4-pack of Brewers tickets to next Friday's game. It is a statewide text-to-win contest. Your next shot, you'll have a different word in the following shows. So Tom Hartman will have a different word from 11 to 2, Todd Alba then from 2 to 4, and Maggie Dawn from 4 to 6. But right now, you want to text in the word play, P-L-A-Y, for a shot at those that 4-pack of Brewers tickets. Nice seats.
Nice, comfy, cushy seats.
Nice, cushy seats. Carol from Anawa just entered. We have Michelle in Wisconsin Rapids, TJ in Green Bay. Thank you for those entries. Keep them coming in. Text in the word play, P-L-A-Y, up until 11 o'clock today. He joins us every Friday. Dan Schaefer, Civic Media's political editor and also the creator of the multi-award-winning Recombobulation Area. There's a measure out trying to encourage more movie makers to come to Wisconsin.
Yeah.
That's
it
a good- that
actually
sounds
has
like
some
a-
bipartisan support on this one, too. How
Whoa.
about that?
We can agree on this?
I know. It's crazy. But there is a bill making its way through the Wisconsin state legislature that would build in some tax credits for people making movies in the state of Wisconsin, which used to be the case several years ago now.
I was going to say.
Do you guys remember the movie? It was called Public Enemies.
I do.
Yes, I
That
do.
was
Johnny
made
Depp.
With Johnny Depp.
Yes.
And so that movie was being made when I was a student at UW Oshkosh. So big chunks of like downtown Oshkosh were like movie sets. And we may or may not will not confirm or deny that we walked home from the bars through those movie sets pretty regularly
Would never
my
happen.
last year at college. That was a lot of fun to just be walking through movie sets at 2 a.m.
I know they
bet.
shot in Milwaukee as well. Like
They did shoot,
in the
yeah.
3rd Ward area,
Right.
downtown. So,
But
yeah.
I mean, they shot Major League here.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but the Public Enemy is really like the last big one, except unless you want to count 1,000 or 100 beavers or how many
Hundreds of beavers.
Lots of beavers. There were many beavers.
So many beavers.
Yeah, and then just like a bunch of other harrowing documentaries and things like that
Yeah.
that have
Right,
been produced
right.
about Wisconsin. But I think this is a good thing. I think they're introducing this. I think this is something that people have wanted. Like I think there are some statistics about how Wisconsin is one of the lowest levels in the country of any state for funding any form of arts and culture
Shocking.
in its state budget. And so I think this would be a good thing. I think this is something we could probably agree on. The bill was introduced by Republicans, but has Democratic co-sponsors at this point. It had a public hearing this week in the Assembly. And this was something that Tony Evers also proposed something similarly in his state budget. I think overall it caps these credits at about $10 million a year. So not a huge sum of money total
Right.
that would go to this. But, I think this is a good step to getting us started and getting something back going with that. Right.
I mean, this is a change, though, to me, because I'm surprised it's Republicans, because a few years ago when they tried to do this, they were just like, no, it was an absolute no, we're not going to create tax credits for movies. I mean, if you want one example, just one example of what credits for movies can do, Georgia. They film, I think, every Marvel property is filmed in some way in Georgia. They have created a movie. I mean, Pinewood Studios in England, the famous Pinewood Studios, Let It Be, the James Bond movie, all filmed there. They have a Georgia satellite office there. They make movies. Pinewood Studios makes movies in Georgia. You watch a movie and you see a big peach says Georgia. It's because they filmed in Georgia, and it brings jobs.
Yes.
Whoa.
Lots of jobs.
It brings economic influx. It builds up communities. It absolutely builds up communities. There's no reason. I've never understood why. And there's other states too. There's other states as well. They're like, no, we don't want to do this. What do you have to lose? You get the attention. It's great. I mean, it's a job creator. Why not do this?
Well, and now it seems like we have some bipartisan agreement that this would be a good thing.
Yeah, it's actually going somewhere. Believe it or not, things can happen in the state of Wisconsin and our state government.
But there's still got to be someone who's going to come out screeching about why would we give woke Hollywood a break to bring their filth here? You know that's going to come from somebody.
You know it's going to come from somebody for sure.
Yeah,
right.
But I think, they're also creating, and it's another thing, they're like looking to create something called the State Film Office, which, some people don't always like creating additional layers of bureaucracy in the state. So that's, something to think about too. But, covering a certain level of production expenses for somebody who wants to make a movie in Wisconsin, I think that'd be a good thing.
Well, and this involves video game industry as well.
That one's actually a separate bill. So they're not only also introduced by a Republican, I believe State Senator Pat Teston was putting this one forward. So creating similar tax breaks for those creating video games in the state of Wisconsin.
That's a huge industry, man.
It is a huge industry, and it brings, the type of tech workers that Wisconsin has really struggled to bring, develop those types of industries in the state to Wisconsin. And I think there's a couple. I wrote an article years and years ago about this in one of my past lives as a business news reporter. But I think there's a couple offices in Madison that are part of like the company that makes Call of Duty or something like that. I'm blanking on the names. I'm not a gamer. I apologize. But I do think there is like some level of presence for that industry here. And again, I think it would be a good thing. It's not a huge investment. It's similarly like, capped at a certain type of level. It would cover like, a 30% of wages and production costs or something like that. But again, that would be a good thing.
It would, absolutely.
And bipartisan, you always love to hear that word. My only fear is that, I'm sorry to sound very cynical, but when Republicans bring forth things like this that have to do with the arts, I always want to know what the language is. I always want to know, because it just seems weird that out of nowhere, all of a sudden they want to propose tax credits for movies and for video game producers. I'm like, why? Why?
You're always waiting for the catch. You're waiting for the other shoe.
Yeah.
But now we have John Voight and Arnold Schwarzenegger. Not Arnold. It's Sylvester Stallone. And who else did Trump tap?
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
To be they're going to remake Hollywood. Right?
Make Hollywood great again or whatever it is. Yeah.
Without and end all that woke entertainment stuff.
Yeah, that's right. We have to dictate what type of art you can make.
Exactly.
That's good.
I love, just love freedom. Don't you guys love freedom, especially freedom for businesses? I love freedom for businesses to do what they want. Who talks about that all the time? Oh, yeah, Republicans.
Do you feel like this has a pretty good chance to pass?
I think it does. Yeah, I don't see a whole lot of opposition to it. Whether it passes as a standalone bill or they put it into the state budget, like that could be, part of whatever negotiations they have going forward. But it looked like there was some pretty positive feedback at a public hearing, at least for the film production tax credit this week. I saw positive response from both Democrats and Republicans in that. And again, it has, it was introduced by Republicans and it has Democratic co-sponsors. I see Chris Larson, Mark Spreitzer, Brad Pfaff, a number of state senators have signed on as co-sponsors for that one. So
that would be great.
Hey, let's get something done.
It really would. We have so many different areas in Wisconsin, I think, that are so different in how they look.
Yeah.
That we just have a wealth of opportunities for movie makers here.
Well, and maybe if they had more Wisconsin people, you wouldn't run into these pitfalls like you saw with that one Craig T. Nelson movie that you had that huge problem with the gutters.
No one would do that.
Gutters and ladders. Why are you doing this, Dan? Why are you bringing this back up again? What are you?
No, self-respecting Wisconsinite would have done
As
that.
I was bringing that up, Jane was smiling and Greg was like, "Oh no."
I know someone we could actually have a really nice discussion about with this is Pete Schwaba too. He's talked about this fact that he says that he has said in discussions, I think with us, that lack of tax credit, lack of opportunity, lack of buy-in from the state government causes artists to either not produce their art or to seek it elsewhere, go to other states that are like, hey, come here. And I just want to have, I don't know about Minnesota, but I just want to have something that makes Minnesota go, oh, Wisconsin's kind of cool because they have everything right now.
Troy from Onhora asks, is Voss going to allow a vote on that?
Probably. If he's allowed it to go
this
to
far.
Public hearing, he's allowed it to go to public hearing and have advance in the process. So yeah, I love how that we're all just approaching this just like Is this actually going to happen?
Yes.
What's the thing? Is Voss going to block this at the very end?
Well, again,
and it's all not without reason.
exactly.
You
We're all
know?
looking at where's the catch?
Yeah.
Yep.
Where's the catch?
Calvin said that Raven Software is the developer in Medicine, and also PJ said between the two of them, they said Call of Duty, Doom, and the other game I think was Quake video game. So they've worked on those video games, but that's still
Huge
Some big
industry.
names.
it's a huge. Yeah, those are huge. I've heard of all three of those games.
Yeah. So have I. I haven't played any of
There you
them,
go.
but
There
you
you
know.
go.
Dan Schaefer is here, Civic Media's political editor and also the creator of the multi-award-winning Recombobulation Area. In the minutes that we have left, any reactions about the selection of Pope Leo XIV as the new pontiff?
I always look for a Wisconsin connection in these. Whenever there's a big national story, global story, any story really, there's always a Wisconsin connection.
6 degrees of.
It's we are somehow the nexus of the universe in certain ways. So when it was announced that the Pope was born in Chicago, I of course was making a lot of jokes about Chicago, as so many people
So
were.
many, oh.
Chicago produced a Pope before they ever got a good quarterback.
Ba-dum-bum.
All of these different things. But I saw there was a news story that some people were going through his background and his bio and anything you can find about this guy. All the reporters looking for the local angle. And I saw that Channel 12 in Milwaukee found an article that said his journey included a time when he served as a teacher as the Augustinian novitiate
Yes.
in Oconomowoc.
Whoa.
Oconomowoc.
There it is,
The
folks.
new pope was a teacher in Waukesha County,
Cool.
my homeland.
Mine
That's
too.
cool.
Did I cross paths with the new pope at the Kilty in Oconomowoc? It's possible because it sounds like he was also there in the early 2000s.
Bob- Bob, have you met our son Dan? He's a good kid. He's at the school. He's doing really well. He wants to be a writer. Hello, sir. That's you. That's my head. You met a guy named Bob.
That's right. Bob, the White Sox fan from.
I love that he's a Sox fan because there's nothing I love more than denying Chicagoans happiness.
It's just been. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I know they were thinking, oh yeah, Cubs all the way. No, South Side, get over it.
It's just been so interesting to see some of the memes and
yeah.
and he is a.
I've been having some fun on the platform formerly known as Twitter on this one.
I
saying
bet.
the Pope Mobile just cut you off on 90 and 94. There's a non-zero chance that the new Pope has been to the Lake Forest Oasis.
Oh, that was good.
I'm just reading my own jokes at this point, but we're all like this is one of the rare times that Twitter is actually a fun place. Is when people are just riffing
like it used to be.
Yeah.
Like it used to be.
I mean, honestly, it's just I'm kind of excited to see where he'll go. It seems like he's a good man
Yeah.
at this point, approaching it gingerly.
Shout out to the Pope. The
Yes.
Chicago Pope. Duh, Pope.
Props to the Pope. Props to the Pope. I'm sure that means a lot. I'm sure that means a lot to him. Dan Schaefer, Civic Media's political editor, subscribe to the Recombobulation Area. Thanks so much, Dan. We'll see you next Friday.
Thank you.
Stay with us. We're going to wrap it all up with This Shouldn't Be a Thing, Tanks for the Memories edition. You're listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, resident young person Calvin on the board, coming to you live from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. Join us, leave a comment on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. You have about 7.5 minutes left to text in via the Civic Media app. Text in the word play.
Play.
Play. Text in the word play via the Civic Media app. We have a 4-pack of Brewers tickets up for grabs. Anne Marie in Brookfield. You may want to type it again. You got Clay that came in. The word is play. Play. Text in the word play before 11 o'clock, and you are in the running for that 4-pack of Brewers tickets for next Friday. Your next chance with a different word will be during the Tom Hartman Show from 11 to 2, then Todd Alba from 2 to 4, and Maggie Dawn from 4 to 6. But right now, the word you want to text in via the Civic Media app only, the word to text in is play, Play. Coming up next week on Monday, James Causey from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel is going to join us to talk about reckless driving in Milwaukee. And he and his wife were recently caught in the middle of a high-speed chase. I can't imagine how terrifying it was, but he's got some pretty strong opinions about what he thinks should be done in order to crack down on what is an epidemic and has been an epidemic in Milwaukee for quite a while.
I'll have some questions about outside of Milwaukee, because while Milwaukee has its own brand of reckless driving, I live in Kenosha and I see
You
it
see
all.
the same thing too.
Yeah.
But, when they're doing all these bump outs and other things to try and make people slow down, James Causey has some other ideas. So
Yeah.
we're going to talk about that coming up on Monday. And then Emma Schatz will be here with really important news.
We only break the most important news on Matenaer On Air. That's why we've won all the award.
Well, no, we didn't. Fat Bird Week. Today's your final day to vote, you guys.
Honk if you love chonk.
Honk if you love chonk. Emma will be here with the winner of Fat Bird Week coming up on Monday. I know you don't want to miss that. And it's a great fundraiser as
Yes,
well.
it is. Yes, it is.
So it's getting late. It's 11:55. Calvin, that means it's time for...
This shouldn't be a thing.
Here's the headline from Newsweek. World War II veteran runs tank over Tesla. A World War II veteran rolled a tank over a Tesla in a video stunt by a British activist group. They are not fans of Elon Musk. Calvin, I believe we have a clip from this 98-year-old World War II veteran. Let's play that clip, please.
My name is Ken Turner, and I'm 98 years old, and I've served in the British Army in World War II, as did this Sherman tank. I'm old enough to have seen fascism the first time around. Now it's coming back. Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, is using his immense power to support the far right in Europe. And his money comes from Tesla cars. Well, I've got this message from Mr. Musk. We've crushed fascism before, and we'll crush it again. So let's go, shall we?
Shall we? It starts like a lawnmower.
And he fires up the tank, and he drives over a Tesla.
I mean, God, I love the English so much. All of that. I mean, that man fought against Hitler. Maybe one of the most, I don't like using the word lightly, evil, horrible people who ever traversed this globe.
Yep.
So to see what's happening now, happening again, less than 100 years after he fought, all the rage he must be feeling, encapsulated in a tiny English man. Shall we?
He's 98 years old, and he still drives that tank like he's a young man.
I know.
I mean, it's pretty amazing. We will include the link so you can watch the video, because there is a video element involved with this. Again, the guy's 98 years old.
Kenneth Tada. Oh.
And this was sponsored by a group called, I'm trying to find it here, led by donkeys. It is an anti-fascism protest group originally formed to campaign against Britain's Conservative Party. So that is the group that sponsored Ken, 98 years old, World War II veteran, still knows how to drive a tank.
Jane, shall we? I just love that he said that.
Shall we?
I just,
Take a look at it. We'll get it in the show notes after the show is over. That wraps up today's episode of.
Whoa.
Whoa.
This shouldn't be a thing.
If you ever have a thing you think should not be, as always, send it into Greg and me at janesays@civicmedia.us. JANESAYS. Jane Says at civicmedia.us. And you still got 2 minutes. Text in the word play. Well done, Anne-Marie from Brookfield. You got it right.
Good.
The word is play. PLAY, playing for a 4-pack of tickets to see the Brewers. Thank you, Greg and Calvin and all of our engineers and everyone at Civic Media. Without you, nothing works. And thank you most of all for calling and for texting and for listening. It means the world. I hope you find some joy over the weekend and you get the chance to share it. News is coming up next, so stay here. You are listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. We'll see you on Monday.